and can always be judged by how much he looks forward to the weekend. If the working days of the week are spent in labor, if you're exhausted and just want to rest, then you can treat the weekend as a deserved reward. If you don't care and it's just the end of the week, then you're a lazy deadbeat. I mean, everybody's working for the... Might they just restart? Oh, there goes another segment of 6 minutes. Here's hoping it doesn't do that again. Because I glanced at it and like the number of lost frames just like went to 0. I was like, oh no. If it does it again, let me know, because I'm just not having it. Or was I? If you don't care, it's just the end of the week and you're a lazy deadbeat. Was what my father used to say. I doubted he was an overly strict man, rather he was painfully fair-minded. Maybe he could no longer live under the totalitarian Soviet regime. Or maybe his reasons were more banal and mundane. In any case, it was far beyond the understanding of the small boy jerked out of his everyday life. I remember being led to the airport by hand, my father dragging a large suitcase behind him, a huge plane gobbling up passengers and then soaring away to the sun, higher than the birds, higher than Icarus, who I had read about in the book of Greek myths. I don't feel scared at all at the time. I guess I didn't really understand what was going on. Slowly guiding along lush carpet of clouds, the plane looked more like a ship swaying peacefully on the waves. When the silhouettes of forests, rivers, cities, the endless vast steppes and tundras appeared below, they for some reason seemed unreal, like I was watching a film. The airport in that foreign country felt completely different. Oh, the mouse. There we go. Felt completely different. The city was like another planet compared to my hometown. Many strange people were running about, speaking an unfamiliar language. The lights of the billboards, the endless string of cars. I held tighter to my mother's coat. It seemed as if in just a moment I would be picked up and carried away by this flow to a place where little children would never return. Dad looked tense, the vein in his temple throbbing from time to time. People were constantly coming into our cramped hotel room. Some of them spoke Russian, but I couldn't understand exactly what they were saying. And then we moved here. I never would have thought that all of this was just for the three of us. My old room had seemed enormous to me. I would build a pillow fortress, jumped on the bed, not even reaching the ceiling, and it seemed like a closet that Mom called a Czechoslovak wall, held all the treasure in the world. After that, our new house, to my mind, was a mansion or palace out of Pushkin's fairy tales. Almost right away, I met the neighbor girl with a strange name. She was way too shy, would never let go of her simple rag doll, but she spoke Russian, although with a slight accent. She didn't know how to play cops or robbers, which I was very upset about. It was as if until I arrived, all she had been doing day in and day out was read her stupid books with scribbles. Like, we had calligraphy classes in the first grade, and here, it was as if no one went to school at all. But there were cool pictures in her books, and over time I started to understand Japanese cartoons too. Not without my friend's help, new friend's help, of course. She didn't stop being weird, but I got used to her. In fact, to me, she became the only one I was close to besides my parents. just cuts out again. Like, it's hard to really tell if it's losing frames because everything's like a static image, unless we have somebody like a character in movement, but it's minimal, so we'll keep going. Normally, I didn't look forward to the weekend. For me, the whole problem boiled down to the fact that I wasn't going to see Catherine today. The Catherine issue still hung in the air, and then there was my recent fight with Himitsu. I couldn't be two-faced, couldn't pretend nothing was happening, couldn't let things run their course. Both Catherine and Himitsu knew that. My lack of action would eventually drive both of them away. And while Katya couldn't be driven any further than she was now, the prospect of losing Himitsu generally scared me. Which meant I had to decide on something. I didn't want to think that I had to make a decision, but that would sound like a verdict. To top it off, I just didn't have the resolve to imagine that Catherine and I could be together again. Mitsu hadn't come. Well, there wasn't anything surprising about that. Even she had a line her self-respect couldn't stand being crossed. Even she had a line her self-respect couldn't stand being crossed. I read that weird. Was yesterday's fight the last straw? How long could this have gone if Catherine never returned? After eating a half-assed breakfast, I simply sat in the middle of an empty kitchen, aimlessly staring into the distance. This is quite a problem life had thrown at me. Come on, life, what are you doing? Everything's been going fine. I said to no one in particular, just to make sure I wasn't sitting in a vacuum. Vacuum blocks sounds, warmth, love. Just like Katya's heart. No, I needed to talk to her after all. There was just one little thing to do first. Find her. It wasn't going to work. To look for a single girl, even an American in multi-million person Tokyo, was a dumb idea. Not to mention probably didn't want to be found anyway. And we would probably see each other on Monday at school. But I couldn't sit still either. First I stood up and started pacing back and forth at the kitchen, then through the house and walked out into the yard. The feeling of powerlessness was weighing down, depressing me. I felt like a wild predator in a small, cramped cage. If only I could break free, I'd show them all. These agonizing thoughts drove me further and further into the depths of dark frustration. And the ringing of the telephone sounded somehow very simple and mundane. I recently seemed to have learned to guess who was calling without even picking up. This time, too, it seemed like everything was fine. Hello? Hey, Nick. I hung up the phone. Wow. Anybody but him. Mixed with and in contrast to my melancholy, his stupid cheerfulness would create a grim cocktail leading to the suffering of innocent people. Still, I needed to decide what to do next. Indulge in the aforementioned melancholy all the way until evening or try and do something. I didn't know where to look for Catherine, but deep inside I desperately wanted to leave the house and for somewhere far away, where my depression wouldn't reach me. Okay. I mentioned this, I think I mentioned this last session or somewhere along those lines, but I have not picked one person to try and follow. I'm going to do that now. I have in my hand a D4, one for each of the girls that are in this game. There's Mitsu, Catherine, Kagome, and Ellie. I'm just gonna roll the die, let the fates decide who I'm gonna try and go after. Let's see. I'm gonna put them in order of which one came up first. So 1 would be Mitsu, 2 would be Kagome, 3 would be not Catherine. Ellie, and then 4 would be Catherine. What's that? It's 2. So that'd be Kagome. Okay. When it came down to it, I was going to pick either Himitsu or Kagome. We'll go with Kagome. In this case, we're gonna go for a walk, though. Right across from my house, on the other side of the street, was Himitsu's. Our district was strikingly eclectic, combining both the traditional Japanese style and European minor manner houses like hers. More alley. Mitsu was half Russian, but I didn't think she'd want to live in an Izba. Am I saying that right? Izba? What is an Izba? Somebody enlighten me. I would sometimes go to my grandparents' place when I was little. They had a typical Russian Izba. Apparently, it's a Russian thing. Mitsu's grandparents, on the other hand, lived in a traditional Japanese paper house. Oh, excuse me. It's like a log cabin. Okay. A 0 out of 3 on the scale of 3 piglets, I'd say. Nico! Apparently I got lost in daydreaming. Hey, how are you doing? Mitsu was walking back in the direction of the market with 2 large bags in her hands. Fine. You? Yeah, me too. Going somewhere? Just decided to take a walk. Why? No, nothing. Just... She kept to a minimal level of politeness. Minimal for her. Listen. I started merrily. Somehow, even to myself, that merriness was unexpected. I wanted to say... sorry about yesterday. I don't know what came over me. Oh, it's alright. I understand. Really, I'm serious. Don't think you did anything wrong. It's all about me. Oh God, did you really just say it's not you, it's me? If a girl tells you it's not about you, it's definitely about you. And what if it's a guy? What if it's me? It's definitely stupid or worse. You know what? Forget it. Weather's great today. Let's take a walk. You mean right now? Mitsu slightly raised the bags, implying that she had things to do. Yeah, right now. Is it the weekend or not? I don't know. I still need to make lunch. You can't work all the time and never rest. And really, not only did Himitsu regularly make food for me, she also saddled herself with all the chores of her own household after the divorce of her parents. So, let's go. I hopped to her and snatched the bags out of her hands with a quick motion. Nico! Mitsu protested, but her voice sounded reluctant, too timid, like when we were little. Fine. She pouted slightly and sternly marched off to her house. I was still thinking about Catherine, but decided to take a breather. I could postpone dealing with her to Monday. Although I couldn't just cast it out of my mind, I needed to distract myself. Maybe Himitsu wasn't the best option for it for many reasons, but fate itself seemed to have brought us together this morning. I didn't believe in coincidences like that, but many things in life were hard to explain logically. Did you change your clothes? Here I am. Mitsu's sing-song voice came from the doorway. She quickly closed the door and ran up to me. A happy smile shone on her face. Well, let's go? Yes, but where to? Where do you want to go? I hadn't actually thought about that. Because I would have been fine just strolling through the streets if I were alone. Well, I don't know. You choose. God, I know this argument. I know this argument all too well. She stared at me with a serious expression. Maybe in different circumstances she would have simply said, anywhere with you. But not today. Definitely not today. On the other hand, the emotional part of the situation didn't matter much. I would still have to be the one to make the decision. Fine. Let's go to the amusement park. I think you wanted to for a while. Have I? Well, maybe I have. I mean, if you don't want to. Stop it, Nico. Let's go. She playfully took me by the arm and dragged me along. Hey, easy, girl. My parents told me stories about what? I have no idea what that is. I don't even know how to pronounce that. But for a while after my first visit to a Japanese amusement park, I thought that was the reason they had left the Union. Do you need to hang on. VDNKH. The H is the only thing that's in lowercase. It was a real world of childhood, a collection of dreams recreated in reality. These days I barely found any of that interesting. Mitsu, however, seemed to be really excited, just like a kid. Excited about the candy, floss, the roundabouts, even the haunted house. Let's go, she whined. Either refers to the Soviet Exhibition Center or the metro. The former probably would make more sense. You're sure you're not afraid? I'm not. I mean, I am, but there isn't really anything scary in there. I mostly didn't care, but the idea of haunted houses always seemed stupid to me. I didn't like horror movies either. I'm trying to make sure Chicken didn't hear that. Real life could be much scarier. I mean, they're not wrong. And my life right now wasn't far off one of Hitchcock's films. Are you sure about that? Actually, no. There was that whole thing with his life being in danger. Anyways, so, you want to get scared even though you know there's nothing to be afraid of? Well, no, but difficult questions weren't Himichu's strong suit after all. Let's just go, Nico. You said it. Today's the weekend, and you're out here grumbling. People must simply want to shake up, an injection of adrenaline to distract themselves from the daily grind and feel a surge of emotion. Is that the real reason why I play horror games? Did I just realize the truth right now and never notice it all these years? Am I only truly alive when I'm panic barking? Dear God. Anyways. That must have been why horror stuff like that didn't attract me. My life was virtually overflowing with emotion already. I feel a little bit hurt by that. Because I always felt that it's very important to at least smile once a day. Constant fear of imprisonment, starving for food because of gummies. That seems like the question for a philosopher. What is it? What is this Let's Play turning into? Alright. Spoopy. The haunted house was filled with all kinds of papier-mâché yokai, wolves, women with long necks, and other dark spawn from Japanese folklore. I wouldn't have been scared even when I knew why these things were supposed to be scary. Still not as contemplative as a... For example, the drunkard raccoon seemed pretty cute to me. There's a drunkard raccoon. We're moving forward pretty slowly, partly because it was dark in here. Mitsu tightly clasped my arm and would squeeze it so hard at scarier moments that it hurt. Oh, excuse me. Hey, when's the scary part supposed to start? You're always like this. What about me? What matters is that you like it. Truth be told, I had already started to get really bored when suddenly something jumped out at me from the darkness. He's referring to me. I drink and I have dark circles. I sprang back, dragging Himitsu along, and made a wild swing in the direction of the jumping something. Ghost cracked apart and sank to the floor with a distinctive sound of tearing cardboard. Did you just instinctively swing? Whoa, what the hell was that? A Kaijo? Kaijo? Enlighten me. Spooky. I'm never playing that game, by the way. Never. Mitsu laughed. I knew you'd like it. What? Damn it. After that, we started moving even slower, with me now constantly throwing glances left and right, unwilling to die from a heart attack at the tender age of 18. Kaijo, okay. Am I saying it right? Is it Kaijo or Kaijo? I'm guessing the first. Okay. Didn't you say there was nothing to be afraid of? There isn't. I was just startled. It can happen to anyone. I'm not scared, you're scared. Yeah, sure. It can! I responded rudely, my heart beating like crazy. Fine, what do you want me to say? Yeah, I got scared. I'm glad. Glad about what? Are you a sadist now? I know someone who is. No, it's just... She grew embarrassed and dropped her eyes as if she wasn't going to continue. Kaijo? Okay. Still, she found the resolve. I'm glad you managed to distract yourself. Distract myself from what? I asked, uncomprehending. Jesus Christ. Mike! Anyways. I asked, uncomprehending, but Mitsu's gaze filled with anxiety and sadness made me understand. You know, sorry for my behavior yesterday and all, but I'm fine. I don't need to distract myself from anything. Even the buzzing yokai in the distance seemed to have grown silent for a moment, captivated by our conversation. I'm sorry. I didn't want to start it all over again. No, of course. It's not about you. I mean, I said as much myself. It's never about you. It can never be about you. What am I even saying? Nico. My head suddenly started to ache. Thoughts about Catherine rushing over me with new strength, making the pain unbearable. Enough, please stop pretending we're still 7 years old. Was that it? Was this really what this has all been about all the time? Mitsu desperately resist growing up. Oh, did Mitsu desperately resist growing up, thinking she could live her entire life acting like a child? Children are afraid of pain, sadness, being scolded, being shown their mistakes. They hate when their favorite toys are taken away. Children don't want to draw conclusions and learn. They want to grow up. Mitsu, enough. But... She seemed to want to say something, but stopped when she looked at me. Please, stop. Don't you understand you're only making it worse? Don't worry about me like this. I'm not a kid. I can make my own decisions. Whatever they are. Are you making her cry, you jackass? Her small shoulders trembled, and the ghosts fell silent. You can be with her. You can be with whoever you want. Just don't be like this. She was no longer crying, she was weeping, but I was too riled up to pay attention. I blamed Himitsu probably for too much and undeservingly, but at the time I simply couldn't stop. It's cowardly to shift your problems to other people, and even more so to those who are close to you. When you have no more strength left to cope with them yourself, sometimes there's just no other way. Or maybe I was just making excuses. It's sickening enough already, and then there's you! You want to support me? Then stop prying into my soul all the time. I'll sort it out myself and tell you my decision. Mitsu let out one last sob and ran away, breaking cardboard yokais on her way. The door swung closed behind her, and I was left alone in this comical, phony hell, while the real demons were eating at me from the inside. Enough already! In the last week, my life had turned into some shitty TV drama with a cheap plot. Unfortunately, it wasn't actually a TV show and could easily be turned off. Where I continued on the same course, it could only get worse from here. And in a couple years, there would be nothing left. Only pain and void. Like after Mom and Dad's death. I didn't want to lose anyone close to me. Anyone else close to me. And it didn't matter what I really felt. My feet carried me to the exit as if of their own accord. After running out into the street, I was momentarily blinded by the bright sunlight. The contrast with the gloom of the haunted house was too great. When my vision returned to me, I looked around and noticed Mitsu sitting on a nearby bench, calmly eating candy floss. By candy floss, I'm assuming cotton candy. I'm just gonna say that, because candy floss sounds weird. Nothing reminded of the fact that just a minute ago she'd been sobbing violently. Besides, maybe the reddish eyes. Good day. May I make your acquaintance? My name is Nikolai. I said, approaching. It sounded stupid and out of place, but Himitsu loved jokes like this. At least she had before. No, you may not. I'm waiting for a friend. She smiled as if nothing happened. And what are you doing here? I'm waiting for a friend too. She has red hair, often makes a funny face, like this. I puffed out my cheeks and popped my eyes out. Mitsu laughed. Come on, stop. No, I'm telling you, this is exactly what the face she makes. You stop. I sat down next to her, although not too close. Sorry. For today, and in general, let's just not talk about it anymore. I let out a sigh, getting ready for a long monologue. Alright. Mitsu gave a short answer, still focused on her cotton candy. I wanted to say that. Wait, that's it? That simple? Of course. Why fight if we cannot fight? That's true, but I just wanted to say I did the wrong thing. You don't deserve to be treated like this. I know. Suddenly she turned to me and said in a serious tone, Nico, enough. I understand. You didn't mean to and you won't do it again, right? I felt a shiver run down my spine. Yeah, of course. And if you do, I'll bite you. Suddenly I'm getting strange PTSD of a certain beat bird. She chomped down almost half the remaining cotton candy in one go. Scary. I laughed while actually feeling a bit uneasy. I will eat you! I've lost count of how many times she's threatened me with that. Now let's go. I still want to ride the bumper cars. Bumper cars? Now you're talking. But what about the roller coaster? Get on the damn roller coaster. Maybe there was nothing strange about the change in Mitsu's behavior. It might have just been a defense mechanism. To isolate herself from the problem, to ignore it, to pretend nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I couldn't escape the thoughts that came to me in the haunted house. But the shame of what I'd done, memories of sobbing Himitsu, my guilt were letting me process them properly. Maybe I could do it later, when she would have calmed down a bit. And I couldn't even say for sure if Himitsu was vindictive. She never really resented me. Or anyone at all, really. A sweetheart, as my mother would probably say. Mitsu would often get sick when she was little, and as a consequence only went to the first grade when I was already in second. At the time, I barely knew Japanese and attended school at the embassy. I liked socializing with fellow Russians, but at the same time, I felt sorry for Mitsu. She really wanted to go to the same school as me. After my classes, I would read her the books from my homework. She listened carefully and never interrupted, even though she could read much better and faster than me. And then Himitsu went to the same middle school as me. My classes would crack jokes about me, at me about us being together and all that. I probably wouldn't see anything wrong with that now, but at that age, the spirit of rebelliousness and contrarianism simmered in me, and I did it as hard as I could. Which clearly upset Mitsu, but she mostly kept quiet. She clearly had an opinion of her own on the matter, which was very different from mine. Time passed, our relationship slowly changed. I got used to Mitsu, and in the end, she started to regard her like an inseparable part of my life, like a constant. But what did Mitsu herself think? I probably never really cared. The two of us were passing a booth where you could see a pneumatic rifle, where you could shoot a pneumatic rifle to earn points. Enough points would earn you a prize. Let's try it, Mitsu said with excitement. I really don't know how to shoot. Come on, just a couple times. Look, it's not very expensive. Okay. I took the rifle, turned out to be lighter than I expected, tried it, rested the stock against my shoulder, and aimed. To get the maximum amount of points, I had to shoot at the very center of the furthest target. It seemed like the rifle's sight was looking at it, but things couldn't be that easy, could they? The sight's always going to be off. Always. My finger trembled on the trigger. Couldn't make up my mind, endlessly shifting the barrel left, right, up, and down. Nico, shoot! Wait, don't jinx it. Come on, fire! I finally got tired of it. Hit or miss, what did it matter? In my mind, the sound of the shot was supposed to be far louder than it ended up being. Oh, striking marksmanship, young man! The boot's owner exclaimed. What, you mean I hit it? Well, fortune favors fools. You may choose any prize. Any at all? Of course. I looked at Mitsu and her eyes immediately lit up with joy. I want the elephant over there. Nice choice. Nice choice. Always go for the elephant. Aww. That was a really giant, there really was a giant stuffed pink elephant on the far shelf. It was at least a meter tall and just as wide. A pink elephant? Really? It's bigger than you. Hey! Alright. Could you give us, I addressed the owner. The pink elephant over there? Of course! He chucked in a sing-song voice and generally looked pretty amusing. Here. It took Mitsu some effort, but she managed to brace the prize, almost disappearing behind the stuffed animal. Can you even see anything? I can, she said it aggrievedly. It seemed like the voice was coming from the elephant itself. Oh my god, a talking elephant! I theatrically exclaimed. You won, so you carry it. Mitsu handed me the prize and strode forward with a sprightly step. Carrying the elephant was more convenient for me, but it was still a subpar experience. Truly, sometimes it's better to be club-handed. After a weekend like that, you need to rest from all the resting, she said cheerfully, stepping out from yet another attraction. Why do you think people hate Monday mornings? Because it's the first day of the week? Not everywhere. What do you mean? Well, in some places the weeks start on Sunday. That's nonsense. I don't believe it. Where? I don't remember. See? That means you made it up. I didn't make anything up. I read it in the book. A science fiction one? Maybe. Yeah? Why does it matter? It matters because it's not real. Maybe it was on another planet. A different planet can't have a Sunday because it has a different rotation period. What does that have to do with days of the week? Alright, I give up. You win. Ha, that's better. A pleased smile appeared on Mitsu's face. Well, let's go home. Let's go. When leaving the park, I noticed someone familiar in the crowd. Or maybe it was just my imagination. Really? What would she be doing here alone? Did something happen, Nico? Huh? No, nothing. You look like you've just seen a ghost. You think one couldn't follow us from the haunted house? I didn't want to remember what happened there. That place is stupid, I told you. I agree. For the last hour, Mitsu's been trying her hardest to pretend nothing had happened. She almost managed to convince me of it. Let's use the subway. I'm tired. As you wish, my lady. Watching Mitsu drag the pink elephant home was quite amusing. I stood there and observed until the door closed behind her. It's so fluffy! The rest of the day promised to be boring. Mitsu hadn't made lunch for her dad, but definitely couldn't ignore dinner, so I was about to spend today's evening alone. But for some reason, I wasn't as upset by this fact as I couldn't have been. After all, today wasn't that bad. I leisurely walked through my yard, whistling some catchy tune from an anime, opened the door, found a piece of paper under it. Let's say this was 1987, so what anime could it have been? Was it City Hunter? You think this guy would have liked City Hunter? Found a piece of paper under it. A note. All the worries and fears came rushing back in a single moment, and I froze in place, unable to move. It immediately felt like hundreds of eyes were watching me, attentive, cold gazes from the twilight that were piercing me down to the bone. Seems a little too goofy for this tough guy persona. Possibly, you know. Like, this looks good. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyways. But determination suddenly returned to me, and the observers disappeared as quickly as they came. I bent down and picked up the note. It was in English. Nikolai, I thought you wanted to talk, but I guess you didn't really. I'll be waiting for you in the bar until 8 p.m. C. I cast a quick glance at the clock. It was 7:45. The pleasant memories of the day spent with me two melted away so quickly it was strange. I only had 15 minutes, and getting to the bar would take at least 20. That is, if I walked. I rushed through the streets, nimbly dodging people and cars. I'd never been in bad shape, but now my lungs barely seemed to fill with enough air. My vision dimmed, and I almost got myself run over a couple times. Could it really be that simple? No. So many times in the past year and a half, I'd been telling myself that if Catherine were to return, I'd have the self-respect and not coming running at her at the first call like a little puppy. I didn't care in the slightest why exactly she came today, why she was waiting for me at the bar. The cruelest thing anyone can do to another human being is give them false hope. But at the same time, hope is intoxicating, and it makes all the thoughts of worry and common sense lose importance. Somewhere deep inside, I felt sorry for myself, disgusted by my own spinelessness and lack of character. But that was nothing more than the introspection of a junkie between doses. Just yesterday, he'd been telling himself that he'd been able to kick the habit, and today, all he could think of was the drug. Just recently, it seemed to me that it was all over, that I would be able to let go and forget. But all I needed to slip was the smallest thing, a tiny piece of paper folded in two. And a couple simple words. Again and again, I imagine Catherine say it. I don't particularly want to, but if you insist, we could as well talk. The favor, indifference, and at the same time, arrogance, superiority. The less we show our love to a woman, the easier she is to win. Was it? I guess it worked the other way around, too. Finally, I stood at the doors of the familiar bar, greedily gasping for air and trying to catch my breath. Why would she have chosen this place? I definitely couldn't show up here looking like that. I had to spruce myself up. It wasn't even about self-respect, just common decency. Not to mention that this way I'd have a better chance. Large drops of sweat were running down my face, and the giant wet spot in my shirt wouldn't even dry in a minute. Could I possibly look any more pitiful? Yes. Yes, you could. Begrudgingly, I entered. It was pretty empty inside, and the clouds of smoke usual. And clouds of smoke usual for a Saturday evening didn't hover at the ceiling. Only several visitors were nestled in the far corner. Oi, Kolya! The bartender called out to me, idly wiping glasses at the counter. Catherine was nowhere to be seen. What time is it? 8? I mean, exactly. It's 8. 3 minutes past. Why? He asked, surprised. Nothing, no. I was just 3 minutes late. Sure, it'd be stupid to think Katya would left exactly at 8, but even if she did, she'd need some time to get out of the bar and walk far enough. Was Catherine here? I had already caught my breath, but my voice still sounded ragged. Kolya, you alright? Just answer the question. Well... He put the glass aside and walked closer to me. She was. Spent 20 minutes or so sitting here, and then left. What? Yeah, I found it strange, too. No, I mean, when was that? About 3 hours ago. So it was all a lie? The note, the promise to wait until 8? Although I hadn't made the promise up myself. Did she say anything? No. And what about you? What about me? He stared at me uncomprehendingly. Nothing, forget it. Do you want to tell me what this is all about? The bartender poured a mug of beer and put it in front of me. On the house. I like this guy. Not today. I don't like this guy. I carefully moved the mug away. Shit's fucked, is it? I guess so. Somewhere deep inside I knew that the obstinate sympathy from the bartender was nothing more than a skillful act perfected over the years' work. Ostensible. I know I've read that wrong. But at the same time, now more than ever, I ever needed support. Jesus Christ. Why is that so freaking loud? Was this on Catherine's part? A mockery? A joke? Did she just change her mind? Was it really important? I looked at the bartender's eyes and for some reason smiled. I'll go. Well, alright. Take care. In the 5 minutes I'd spent in the bar, it grew totally dark outside. Steam was coming out of my mouth. The steam coming out of my mouth hinted that it was time to get my winter clothes down from the loft. Yeah, maybe I should have gotten myself a drink. I'd at least be warmer. I smirked under my breath. It was that feeling where you're too tired of bearing with the pain and an internal defense mechanism activates, suppressing all emotion. I know how read. And now I was absolutely sure I wouldn't be running after Catherine anymore. Moreover, I didn't know what and why even happened today. Must have been temporary mind haze. I reached home on autopilot, thinking neither about the past day nor Katya. My windows were alight. It had to be Mitsu. I was even somewhat glad. At least things with her were simpler. At least with her things were simpler. I opened the door with my keys. For some reason, Mitsu hadn't locked herself inside, which was weird. Hi, I said nonchalantly entering the kitchen. She was sitting on a chair, back unnaturally straight, looking at the painting on the wall. I don't even remember where it's from, Mitsu said melancholically. Mom and Dad brought it along from Russia. She didn't react. Why? No reason. It's just a beautiful painting. The Russian scenery. I always wondered how it feels like to be there. I thought maybe we could go there one day, you and I. You'd show me your old home, we would walk through the forests and fields, just like in this painting. We will. No reason not to. Mitsu was acting unnaturally. I wasn't even trying to hide it. I don't think it'll work out. Not anymore. Why? She finally tore herself away from the painting and looked at me. Because I'll need to study. Mitsu suddenly smiled and continued. And so will you. As if I would. But there will be breaks. We can go for a trip then. Maybe. Anyway, time for dinner now. I cast a look at the painting. Honestly, I had no idea what was depicted on it. A place in the real world or a piece of the artist's imagination. Does it really matter if people like it? At least Mitsu did. She even wanted to go there. When is dinner? Mitsu wasn't herself. She didn't ask where I'd been, even though by the looks of it had been waiting for me for a while. Here, Mitsu said proudly, putting a plate of baked potatoes and a steak in front of me. Damn! She made you a frickin' steak dinner! To what do I owe the honor? I know you like this stuff, so I just decided to make it. I do, sure, but you don't usually... I mean, you prefer healthy food. It's okay to treat yourself sometimes. You did win me that elephant today. Oh, right. The elephant. The giant pink one. Where'd you put it? In my room. I wanted to put it on the shelf first, but there wasn't enough space, so the corner had to do. I laughed. Hey! Don't hate me. Imagine how hard it must be for the proud African animal to live within 4 walls. It's used to the open savanna. Nico. Mitsu smiled and started eating. For a while, I managed to forget about the note about Catherine. I simply enjoyed my favorite meal. I had no desire to think about Himitsu's initial weird behavior. How are things at home? Everything's fine. Why? Well, you did skip lunch. It's okay sometimes. Didn't you say so yourself? Why wasn't she asking where I'd been? Maybe there's something else? Mitsu took a moment to think. Not really. Everything's fine. Was I working myself up over nothing? Maybe she didn't notice anything. Who could know what I was off doing? Maybe I was saving the world. Okay, I guess. Any plans for tomorrow? Of course. Tomorrow's our big autumn cleanup. Huh? Really? Okay then. Come whenever you want. I was talking about myself, actually. We're cleaning my house. Of course. I grew somewhat embarrassed. I'll clean up too then. Mitsu giggled. You? Clean? Don't worry, I'll deal with it next week. Alright, if you say so. Suddenly I felt uneasy around her. Because I was hiding a new note from Catherine, there was clearly something wrong with Mitsu. At the same time, dinner was on the table and she was smiling, which made me even more uneasy. Cleaning is a responsible task, requires a good night's sleep. The two of us have gotten tired enough today already. I'm not tired at all. Okay. What do you want to do then? What about you? Gotta sleep, to be honest. Alright, let's sleep then. Didn't you say you weren't tired? Well, if that's what you want. Okay, I guess. I stood up, but Mitsu remained in place, looking at me expectantly. Worrying thoughts started to sprout up in my mind. Should I see you safely home? I'll be sleeping with you. Oh, goody. She replied calmly. Mitsu, you're scaring me. Stop that. A nervous giggle escaped my lips, and it took a titanic effort to not take a step back. Where did you go today, Nico? Where? What? To the amusement park with you, don't you remember? And after that, I was home. I stammered out. The whole time? Yeah. Then where did you run off to? The calmness of Mitsu's voice as she said that was making me feel genuinely scared. After her? After who? I didn't run after anyone. She didn't respond, just kept glaring at me. I realized it was useless to keep denying it. Were you watching me? I didn't need to watch you. I know you too well. But then, how? I looked out the window and saw you find the note and then run off somewhere. So you were watching me after all. Think whatever you want. She gave me a short reply and stood up from the chair. It's none of your business in the first place. Oh, don't say that, you jackass. Oh, that's how you talk now? Mitsu tried to appear strong to make me understand she was really upset. Naturally, she had the best possible intentions and was doing it out of concern for me. Maybe someone else would have believed it, but not me. I didn't feel guilty, I just couldn't, not after everything that had happened. I was trapped as if being torn apart from the inside by two opposite forces. It's 'cause you are! I'm tired. I sat down in the chair next to Imitsu and let out a helpless sigh, burying my head in my hands. Leave me alone. All of you, at least for today. Nico. Her voice was cold as before, but notes of sadness could be heard in it. Nico, I worry about you, but you can't keep up like this. She's hurt us so much. Us? What a truly curious choice of words. Just forget her. Is it really that hard? Of course it's hard, I whispered quietly. A couple hours ago I wanted to talk to someone, but the bartender certainly wasn't fit for this conversation. Could Imitsu be? Previously I'd done anything I could to make sure the thought of my relationship with Catherine never crossed her mind. Maybe even impossible. But now I had been driven into a corner, and there wasn't anyone else nearby. I didn't want to see anyone else nearby. I can help if you want me to. She approached and embraced me. It'll be alright. I'm here. I hugged her back and pressed her close. I was serious, if you want it. What are you talking about? Well, this sleeping. I couldn't see her face, but was sure she blushed to the roots of her hair. Do you really think that by doing that, you'd be able to replace Catherine? I don't want to replace anyone. She pushed me away slightly and took a step back. Nico, it just hurts me that you've done it so many times with her, and you'd do it now. But you don't want to do it with me? Would do it now. If Catherine were in Himitsu's place now, would I be able to resist? But what did it matter? As if sex was the only reason I fell in love with Katya. Do you really think sex is what's most important here? That it was the only reason we were together? Maybe you think that I can't love you just because we haven't done it? That's what you think about me, huh? I couldn't stop. Her words genuinely upset me. Was it because there was some truth to them? That's not what I meant at all. Nico, sorry. She burst into tears. Alright. It's fine. I stood up and hugged her carefully. It just seemed like you would believe sex would solve all our problems. She didn't say anything, just kept sobbing. You don't really believe that, do you? Jerked her head from side to side. That's good. Sometimes even the people closest to each other should have some time apart to think things over. What could we even talk about in this situation? So, see you tomorrow? Cleaning? She mumbled. Fine. See you on Monday. Mitsu said nothing, walked out of the kitchen, eyes glued to the floor. I sunk into the chair and waited until the front door closed after her. God, things could have gone so differently. Really, why couldn't I have sex with Mitsu? putting aside all the moralizing about it having between two people who love each other. What if it would have solved all our problems? What if it hadn't? Then Himitsu would definitely start to hate me. And that would be something I can never forgive myself for. Oop. Jumped the gun there. I didn't even see it. Tokyo was sleeping, paying no attention to my problems. This night, the multi-million person metropolis felt absolutely lifeless. Even the street lamps seemed to have dimmed their lights, trying not to wake up the sleeping inhabitants. I was lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling. Looked around the room a couple times. Something was wrong. Out of place, maybe. Or something was missing. It was hard to figure out what exactly was the matter in the dark, but after a while, it dawned on me that the letter wasn't on the table. Had Himitsu taken it? Like I cared. Winter is better than summer. There's no salvation from the heat, but you can escape the cold via a warm sweater and traditional Japanese kotatsu. We can make a snowman, light up the Christmas tree lamp, eat tangerines and Russian salad. What's a Russian salad? Why was that highlighted? And early in the morning, we'd run to look for what presents Father Frost brought us. If only things were as simple now as they were when we were little. I hadn't wanted to grow up, hadn't asked for all these problems and complications. Why did everybody else, Kyosuke, Michael, even Saya, live the lives of normal teenagers when mine resembles some kind of melodrama with elements of tragedy? How would our fates have turned out had my parents not decided to emigrate from the USSR, I wondered. They would have probably still been alive. Both Mitsu and Catherine probably would have been happier, which meant it wasn't all my fault. Catharsis, the redemption through suffering, was, I guess, the only thing that really helped me. I drove my flagellating introspection to its highest point, convicted myself of all the moral sins, served as judge, prosecutor, and the jury, and found myself guilty. And only after that did I manage to fall asleep. That got a little bit tense there. No more curry. That's okay. September 13th. Sometimes life gives you a second chance. And all you need for it is a good night's sleep. The events of the past day had already faded and no longer brought me as much pain. The storm had passed, and I was standing on the deck watching it go. My existential skiff had somehow avoided being crushed. It was all over now. But I had almost slept up. Maybe the only thing Himitsu wouldn't have tolerated was self-pity. Even if it manifested like this. Sunday morning started peacefully as usual, and it's probably the only day when all, or for almost all, Japanese people rest. It's time to be with your family and deal with housework. I remembered it was Mitsu's big cleanup day. Did that mean I wouldn't see her? On one hand, that was a good thing. We both needed to cool down. But did I feel bored? Got a perfectly good bass guitar right there. Just start playing it. What's wrong with you? For the first time in a long while, I had a quiet day. And what did I do? Grumble at the thought that my life might finally return to its normal course. The breakfast seemed insipid and somehow wrong. After a couple minutes, I couldn't even remember what I'd been eating. The TV didn't entertain me with the contents of his box. I hadn't bought any new games for a while. I was bored with the old ones, and the printed letters danced in circles in front of my eyes. Now, isn't this something? Just a week ago, I could spend the entire weekend bumming around. Maybe it wasn't about being bored after all. Yesterday's evening with Mitsu distracted me from thoughts about Catherine, but nothing had really changed. Maybe I wasn't as sensitive about her being less than 1,000 miles away from me anymore, but I couldn't solve the problem by ignoring it. A phone call interrupted the disorder of my thoughts. I forced myself to answer it. Hello? Awake so early? Weird. It took me too long, really, to recognize the voice. I definitely hadn't expected to hear her. You still remember my phone number? I have it written down. Jeez. Anyways. Yeah, of course. What was I hoping for? What do you want? Aren't you rude today? Woke up on the wrong side of the bed? I distinctly imagined her smirk. Rude? You bet. After what happened yesterday. Yeah, but that doesn't scare me. It's just loud in my ears. When she just ditched me at the bar. You mean the note? What else could it mean? You know, I even believed it for a second. I even came. She didn't answer immediately. So did I. Yeah, but you weren't there at 8. The bartender told me that you left 3 hours before. That's correct. Suddenly, Catherine's voice grew firm. You didn't expect me to sit there for 3 hours, did you? So it was just another trick of yours? No. I was just waiting. In a different place. Outside. But you didn't come. I did. Not at 8. Yeah, maybe a couple minutes late. So what? I think you had enough time. Except I had spent the day with Mitsu at the amusement park and therefore hadn't found the note on time. But there was no reason for Catherine to know that. I came as soon as I could. What do you want from me then? I don't want anything. You're the one who called. You're right about that. She smirked. I guess I shouldn't have, judging by your reaction. Katya, I'm being human too. No one doubts that. You know, maybe I'm in the wrong here. All of these notes and secrets, it's not my style. I figured. What do you mean? Nothing, really. Just a couple days ago, I seriously considered Catherine to be a person who had left a note at my door. As it turned out, she signs hers. Do you still want to talk? I couldn't see her face, but I wasn't sure I would have been able to read her emotions. I wasn't sure I would have been able to read her emotions even if she'd been right in front of me. I would like to talk, but our conversations can hardly be called dialogue of late. I'll see you in the city center in 2 hours. Okay. And don't be late this time. Catherine almost commanded me and hung up the phone. You bet I will. Hello? Hello? I said in silence. I went to my room to dress up. I didn't fancy the idea of coming to the meeting early. Spending however long wandering there alone. So I was just sitting at the doorstep looking at Mitsu's house. Today was their big cleanup day, right? For me too, perhaps. A big mental cleanup day. I could open the windows, air out the smell of dead feelings, throw away my musty thoughts, and scrub the rust off the wrinkles in my brain and polish my skull. A visit to a psychologist is a common occurrence in American movies. It isn't as widespread in Japan, and I'm not sure whether psychologists even exist in the USSR. I could probably use one. Mitsu's father's car approached the house. I gave him a nod of greeting, and he responded likewise. I wondered, would I already have a bullet in my head if Mitsu had told him everything that had happened between the two of us lately? Probably. Or would a for sale sign appear in front of their house? Probably the former. Her father, Ryunosuke-san, was too Japanese. Oh, it probably wouldn't be a bullet, probably just be decapitated head then. I didn't remember her mother well, but she had seemed more friendly. No wonder they ended up divorcing. There was still an hour before the meeting with Catherine. If I walked slowly, I'd be right on time. Yeah, I need some water. Sometimes I thought that normal Japanese people only had 2 sets of clothes. Business suit and a casual outfit, only worn on the weekends. And for their casual look, everyone went nuts. I wasn't really obsessed with fashion, but still tried not to stand out in a bad way. Although in Tokyo, a tall European guy always stands out, no matter how he's dressed. A man approached me on the street once and gave me a business card of a modeling agency. After that, I spent an entire evening looking at myself in the mirror and trying to figure out in what way I resembled a model. The clock in the window of the shop across the street told it was time we agreed to meet at. Tick-tack, tick-tack. I'd almost had enough of this. Catherine's just about half an hour late. Had she decided to dump me again? Japanese people usually agree to meet at the same places, meet at all the same places, near stations, at fountains, on squares, and at monuments. Why this shop then? Because this was a place where we had our first kiss. Just like that, on a busy street in the afternoon, without shame in front of everyone. Maybe it wasn't the most romantic place, but I couldn't wait anymore, and she didn't seem to mind. But it all happened so long ago, as if in a previous life. And now I was standing here, losing the last remains of my self-respect, waiting for who knows what. Sorry. Turned around to see Catherine standing in front of me. It was strange that she appeared from that side. Thought she'd come from there. I'd waved my hand at the direction where her house used to be. I don't need to take the subway anymore. Miscalculated the time a little. Stellar logic. Yeah, sure, the ones who came too late to school always lived closest to it. A little? I've already stopped waiting for you. Then what are you doing here? She smiled. Quite genuinely, as it seemed. Must be a habit, too. Alright, let's walk. I can see the owner of that shop giving me suspicious looks. Of course, Katya knew what shop it was and decided on the meeting point, but my words still made her blush and quietly lower her head. For a while, we walked in silence. To be honest, I don't even know where to start. Let's just not start this all over again for the 100th time already. I think we've already figured out who returned to where and why. Okay, we have, I mumbled limply. I really didn't have the strength to go over this again. Oh, excuse me. Honestly, I just have no idea what else we should talk about. Let's enjoy the silence then. Do you need company for that? Well, we could also chat. My Japanese is a little rusty. Do you really need it though? In a year, you'll be studying in a college in the States. Who knows? She replied wistfully. There's no way you want to stay here. And you? Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, but most people simply don't see it. That's easy to say in your position. It is. One thing I've always liked about Katya was her sincerity. Not honesty, no. She kept a lot to herself, even hid things. But she was never overly polite and refused to adjust herself to others. She would disagree with or often even offended older people if they were wrong. Never idolized anyone remotely successful, as was common here. She always had that inner strength, and to be honest, I often felt a little intimidated around her, knowing she was a stronger person than I. That had been the case back then. Now she just appeared to just be an arrogant, petulant, bad-mannered girl who toyed with me, fully aware of my feelings. So what are your plans for the future? Same as before? Exactly the same as before. Nothing. What would Mitsu say about that? Do you care? Somehow it seemed to me that she did. Suddenly, Catherine stopped and looked at me intently. Do you still not know anything? Know what? I felt uneasy, as if I was missing some vital detail. I don't want people to think I'm at fault here, that I'm interfering with your life or relationships. The thought alone makes me feel gross, like I care. This sort of thing was typical for Catherine. She was always overly obsessed with how she appeared to other people. Just imagining it. Catherine clenched her teeth angrily. Nobody's accusing you of anything. Just put yourself in my shoes. Seems to be too much of a coincidence. Coincidence is a good way to put it. There's nothing more to it than that. Katya seemed outwardly calm while saying that, but I was sure that in reality she was much more agitated than the day before. We can forget all this and move on, I said unexpectedly, even to myself, and stopped. Forget? She asked, startled. Well, yes, it's the best option. Nobody's at fault. Yes, things just happened. Things happened, and in the end, yeah. That was the fastest, most ridiculous ending to any war in history. We achieved peace by destroying the population of both countries. That's why you decided to meet here, right? Catherine didn't reply. Didn't even give me a look. All you said was, in the city center, and I came here. Because this is the most convenient spot. Not too far from my place or from yours. Well, it's definitely just a coincidence, nothing more than that. Here you go again. She's sick the ship to kill the captain. She let out a sigh. Just getting a little nostalgic, I beg your pardon. I'm not going to shame you for that. Oh, she blushing. Catherine pretended to look at something on the other side of the street to hide her embarrassment. That's something. You can't shame a person for their memories. It's a bad idea to point fingers to begin with. You have to start with yourself. Is that a statement or advice? Both, I guess. She paid zero attention to the obvious ambiguity of my words. Remember when you ditched class because you had a fight with our English teacher? Yeah, he was wrong, and I pointed out his mistake. In Japan, being older is more important than being right. Catherine laughed quietly. And then you followed me. Of course I did. The class is boring anyway. And I wanted to get you to know you better. I guess you were not happy with me now. I guess you're not happy to know me now. Mitsu isn't, for sure. My entire life doesn't revolve around her, you know. Well, maybe it did now. Don't take that as an accusation. Quite the opposite. And what about you? There a dashing cowboy waiting for you in the U.S.? This joke fell flat, and she didn't respond right away. No. Sorry, it's none of my business. I wasn't looking for one. I told you, it's none of my business. So, you're not interested at all? Katya finally stopped and gave me a curious look. I don't know how to respond to that. Relax. It's a joke. You and your jokes. Hey. By the way, do you want to drop by? Catherine pointed at the building entrance next to us. Do you live here now? What was this? It's more convenient than before, isn't it? Yeah. Closer to our school. Wouldn't your mother mind me coming in? She's at work. Ah. Is that so? I have a feeling you're misinterpreting the situation. I can't imagine how else I could interpret it. Okay. Once again, I just don't want to be considered. I'm just being polite. It's Japanese hospitality. Yeah, you and I are very Japanese. Catherine smiled slightly, which somewhat calmed me down. Maybe it was the time to stop pretending like she was Hitler. She must have felt somewhat guilty as well. Alright, let's go. Catherine lived in a pretty large apartment. A place that looked spacious in the middle of Tokyo could only be afforded by very wealthy people. Or high-ranking diplomats. Not that the Winters' family not that the Winters family have had, I don't know, much to complain about even in the past. They used to live in a decent multifamily housing block, although not in the most prestigious of districts. Did that mean that her mother had been promoted? Sit down already, Catherine said, clearly displeased by me studying her guest room for far too long. Everything looks so European. Do you find it weird? Not really. Do you want some coffee? Tea? I still couldn't figure out why Catherine had invited me here in the first place. No, thank you. Stop acting like you're being interrogated. She smiled. You would make a good policewoman. Noted. Thanks. So, what did you want to talk about? We should have talked right away. I guess you're right about that. I remained silent, afraid to interrupt when she was speaking so candidly. Besides, I don't want you to think I did something wrong. I don't want someone else, anyone, to think that. Because I didn't. She gave me a furious look, as if I was objecting. Kyosuke must have already told everyone at school. Come on, he wouldn't. Of course he did. But then, why would she transfer to our school at all? I couldn't ask that question right now as much as I wanted to. You're a terrible liar. It didn't feel like the first time someone told me that as much. Terrible because you absolutely have nothing to lie about. Because nothing happens in my life? Isn't that true? Do you want to teach me, or... Katya stood at the side of the room looking out the window with a sad expression, her arms folded over her chest. Look, I'm not rushing you, just... put yourself in my shoes. I can't. Not because I don't want to, I simply can't. I don't know your situation. She smiled slightly and shifted her gaze to me. You think I'm such a bitch, don't you? I don't. Sometimes I just. Very often I don't really understand you. Neither do I. I don't know what'll happen next. You think I have it easy. But you're responsible for your own life. Nobody can take you halfway around the world like a piece of luggage just because that's the job. I know you don't like it here. Don't like it? Catherine smirked bitterly. I have maybe one good memory of this country. What is it? Suddenly her expression changed. Maybe you'd still like some tea. Well, alright. Refusing twice would have just been impolite. Katya quickly walked to the kitchen, leaving me alone in the living room. What was she talking about? It seemed I was beginning to understand why she had invited me here, but I was too afraid to even admit it myself. So I asked to not be even more disappointed afterward. She would come back with hot tea in hand, cold and arrogant once again, and I would only be able to think about how the two of us were about to make up. Maybe she simply didn't know what she wanted. I stood up and walked around the room. It was spotless, though not really that big. Phone hung on the wall, a small piece of paper with the telephone number that was stuck next to it. I guess she hadn't memorized this number yet. I quickly grabbed the pen from the table and wrote the number on my hand. Catherine kept the place tidy, only a few notebooks carelessly scattered on the table standing out in the general picture. I picked up one of them and flipped through it. Modern Japanese language. For a hard-working student with far-reaching plans to enroll in a prestigious college, she made too many mistakes. Although I doubted she would need Japanese in the U.S., I looked more carefully. The way she wrote some kanji looked familiar to me. Was Katya's handwriting similar to Kyosuke's? No, not really. It was too even. I started to turn over the pages feverishly, looking for certain words. You, grave, people. Kanji and hiragana on the pages before me started to form into sentences. Nikolai-san, be careful, you are in grave danger. Certain very powerful people linked to you, to your father, are after you. This is not a prank or a hoax. No doubt about it. That note was written in the same handwriting. On the notebook's cover, in the same neat manner, was written, Catherine Winters. But how? Why? I started feverishly flipping through the other notebooks. It was all the same. But back then, during the break, I was sure the handwriting was different. I heard steps coming from the kitchen and got scared out of my mind. Sorry it took so long. I don't usually drink tea and you aren't a big fan of coffee. What's the matter with you? Catherine asked, startled. Apparently I looked weird, putting it mildly. Nothing. Good thing I managed to put the notebooks back the way they had been. Are you sure? You look like you just seen a ghost. She smiled and put the cup on the table. I couldn't force myself to pick it up as I could feel my hands shaking. Suddenly I felt terrified of being in the same room with this girl. I was absolutely sure that the note wasn't a prank or a hoax. It would have been completely out of character for Catherine. If she had decided to write something like this, it was serious, whether it was a threat or a warning. Nikolai? Yeah, sorry, I just remembered I've got some stuff to do. Katya looked at me carefully but didn't say a word. Very urgent stuff, I need to. Even under other circumstances, I hardly would have been able to come up with something urgent to do, especially something I somehow forgot about. Catherine would never believe me like she didn't believe me now. You don't feel comfortable being here? She asked in a detached voice. No, I didn't say that, just... Right when I finally decided to talk to you. Off you go. Katya finished coldly, nodding toward the exit. Yeah, thank you. I mean, bye. See you at school tomorrow. It took a considerable effort not to break into a run. When I left the building, I realized that it was hard to breathe. My heart was pounding furiously, and it took some time to come to my senses. I wondered if she was watching me out of the window. Luckily, I was standing under a canopy, but I was standing for way too long. Suspiciously long. Trying to keep a steady pace, I walked away from Catherine's house. I felt better among people, away from her. Why did I react like this? I didn't want to think that Catherine would have made fun of me this way, but she'd changed so much over a year and a half. If she really wanted to warn me about something, the note mentioned on my father's work. I doubted Katya had anything to do about it, but her mother? I slowly walked away from the ever-busy center of Tokyo, and soon skyscrapers gave way to small houses huddled together. It was quiet here, as always, and more importantly, it was serene. Catherine wouldn't have liked it. Maybe she just wanted to take revenge on me. But why would she invite me to her apartment trying to explain something? I still couldn't fully believe that she was the one to write the note. And what about the call? The voice had been clearly male. Even if I assumed that it was all Katya's idea, was she an evil genius with a gang of henchmen at hand? Of course, everything could be much simpler. I could be simply overthinking it and making absurd assumptions. But then why had my life been going its normal course until just a week ago? And now everything was going down the road to hell. Still, this day would soon end and a new one would begin. The few people on the streets walked with smiles on their faces. Sunday was possibly the only day off in the entire week, so why would they be happy going to work tomorrow? If I were to rethink the flow of the Japanese life from Catherine's perspective, everything would seem much more depressing than I usually saw it. But was that really enough to treat me like she had? I only reached the home an hour and a half later. It was stupid to think that Himisu was waiting for me. Inside there was only silence, even more deafening in contrast with the outside, where the evening birds sang their songs. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and froze in something akin to delirium. What next? What was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to live? The note. I stormed to my room and took the note out of the drawer. The handwriting was definitely the same. There was no doubt the note had definitely been written by Catherine. I didn't even care for the why of it anymore. The only thing I wanted to know was, why me? Why was she doing this to me? Why did she keep doing this to me? Or why did she keep doing this to me? But I still couldn't shake off the thought of our conversation in our apartment today. She just didn't resemble a sadist or a spy. What if her handwriting was faked? But what for? I continued coming up with theories, all based on my extraordinary importance. Maybe mostly because otherwise it meant Katya was doing all this out of resentment towards me, maybe seeking revenge. I didn't want to believe that, I simply couldn't force myself to. The ringing of the phone sounded peaceful, casual, but I flinched out of habit. It wasn't even evening yet, It seemed a bit early for assassins, spies, or any other dissidents. Hello? My voice sounded unnatural even to myself. Nick, you alright? Why would Michael need me now? Never better. Well, if you say so, he continued after a short pause. It wasn't in his character to pry. So, you didn't forget anything? No? What am I supposed to have forgotten? We were planning to go to the cinema. We were? I really didn't remember anything like that. Maybe we actually did. Most likely at school. He asked, and I agreed without even realizing what he was talking about. These days I only thought of one thing. Yeah, right, let's go another time. I have a headache, and tomorrow we have classes, so I didn't even want to come up with a believable excuse. In a situation like this, Michael would have been as tactful as possible no matter what. Alright, see you tomorrow then. So long. I hung up and stared at the front door. I could have asked her what was going on. I was pretty sure Katya would have killed me there and wouldn't have killed me then and there. Suddenly I felt that I was missing something, a tiny detail, a trifle that was necessary to put this puzzle together. Or was it all just a dream? At one time, 1.5 years ago, I often imagined that nothing had changed. I'd wake up the next day and everything would be the way it used to. Catherine hadn't gone anywhere, we were together and loved each other. And everything that had happened in reality was just another nightmare. Turned out that my nightmare went on to become more horrifying with every minute. And not waking up at all would have been the better option. I could have tried to find consolation with Mitsu, but after yesterday... And then suddenly, I felt better. If only someone could see me now. What a pathetic sight. Yeah, I've always been prone to agonizing over my thoughts, but I never sunk to the point of self-pity, to this disgusting feeling that manifests when you think that the whole entire world is to blame and everyone is against you. A car stopped at Mitsu's house. Her father was back. Hadn't this already happened today? Recurring events. There had been too many of them. There had been too many of them during the past year and a half. The same day, every day, same day, every month. Same day, year to year. And in the end, a noose hanging from the ceiling of a 6 tatami room. Although I wasn't sure I'd even manage to properly hang myself, tall as I was. If things continued on the same course, even Himitsu would have had enough and leave me. So life itself was pulling me out of the putrid swamp by my hair and pushing forward along the yellow brick road. With my companions, the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, perhaps Toto as well. What if they would have liked the comparison? But in order to move forward, you have to make decisions. For example, talk to Catherine about the note. But not today. Today, I was too tired. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Sunday night was descending upon Tokyo, a night that had provided a chance to get that final bit of fun before Monday. The craziest and most desperate fun. So, half an hour later, I stood at the doors of the familiar bar. The inside was loud, filled with smoke and reeking of booze. It's normal for the Japanese to have a drink or two after work and then hanging out with friends or on a date. It was considered acceptable, sometimes even obligatory. What kind of corporate event would it be without eating and drinking? The only problem was that most of them had little to no tolerance for alcohol. 2 or 3 beers are usually enough to take them out, call a taxi, or carry them home on your back. That's why I didn't like drinking with Japanese. No matter what, in an hour's time you were left alone. At that point, you were just wasting booze. Oh, Koya! The bartender's greeting reached me through the noises of the crowd. He peeked over the heads of the people at the counter. Oh, let me get some more water. I can stop yawning. Why had I chosen this bar and come here so often? I couldn't say it was close to my house, and the bar had sort of resembled a Soviet Ryumachnoya. Ryumachnoya. I'm gonna need some enlightenment and means to properly say that right. And definitely not because of the bartender. Hey there, what can I get you? Go for a whiskey. Double whiskey. Ooh, something happened? Yeah. Life happened. Is it that bad? Worse than usual. Love to hear about it, but work's aplenty as you can see. He smiled apologetically, poured me a glass, and was about to take the bottle away when I stopped him, carefully grabbing his arm. Leave it be. I'm partying tonight. Kolya, do you know how much this whiskey costs? I don't, and I don't care. You have nothing over 5,000 yen anyway. True enough. The bartender golfed and raced to the other side of the bar to greet a just-arrived middle-aged man with reddish cheeks. Without the bartender around, there was little sense sitting at the corner, so I moved to a free table. The waitress approached me right away. They could be found here on the weekends, but I coldly told her that I wasn't hungry and didn't let her slip me a menu. Watching the drinking layman was kind of an entertainment, too. They didn't really care about being overheard by others, many shouting as loudly as they could. Visiting any bar in Tokyo on a Sunday evening, you might learn that the sales manager Ibashi secretly hates his boss, that the secretary Minomi-chan cheats on her husband, and big boss Toki-san fears so much for his children's future that he can't sleep properly. The next day, they all go to work in a good mood, even if they couldn't manage to recall what they had done or said the night before. I looked at a full bottle of whiskey. As for me, whoa. Is this seat taken? A young woman in a strict red business suit was standing in front of me. A European. I looked around the pub and realized that there were no other free seats. No. Oh, sorry, I'm just... As she laughed and put down one of the complicated cocktails from the bartender's vast collection. It's rare to meet a non-Japanese person here. Oh, I didn't mean... It's my first time here and I don't know you. Sorry again. She was clearly tipsy, laughed a lot, then entered the condition where a decent lady needs but a half glass of champagne to become Schaffner. Shiffen. I don't even know what that word is. Highly sophisticated, but still a piece of furniture. Chiffonier? Chiffonier? I don't know. Nonetheless, I was glad to have company, especially a woman's. My entire life couldn't revolve around two girls who didn't know what they want. I guess you're right. We're probably the only Europeans who have visited this bar in its entire history. It's a tall chest of drawers. Okay, so it's like chiffon. Not counting the bartender, of course. I smiled, trying to look friendly. Do you come here often? She looked to be about 25, perhaps older. Sometimes. So, you like this place? I had been asking myself the same question a couple minutes ago. Yeah, it's more like I'm used to it. Interesting. She said vaguely and riveted her eyes on me. You must be a student. Yes, sort of. For some reason, I couldn't lie persuasively to her, and I started to avert my eyes. I couldn't say I was just a high schooler. Todai? How'd you guess? It just seems that you're kind of a handsome and intelligent young man must study here. Must study there. Oh. She abruptly stretched her hand out to me. Irene Dupont. Parlez-vous français? I was embarrassed, but responded with a handshake. Nikolai. Nikolai Anakin. Oh, so you're from the USSR. And without letting me say a word, continued. Moscow's a wonderful city. I've been there. The Kremlin, the Red Square. Are you from Moscow? Maybe from Leningrad? Magnificent, magnificent place. Fabulous museums. Are you from there? You could say I'm from there. Oh, that's interesting. I just arrived recently. Strange, I could barely hear an accent. I work as an attaché at the embassy. Everything here is so... Irene spread her arms, clearly showing exactly how so everything was. But unfortunately, I don't have much free time. Don't really have much free time. Like today, we went out with my Japanese colleagues, but I lost them already. What a goofball. She broke out into loud laughter. Can you imagine? It happens. I was flattered by the attention of a girl like this. Or should I say, woman. Her beauty wasn't the same as the girls I knew. Maybe Ellie. But even she lacked Irene's mature charm. So here I am now, sitting all alone. I meant to say with you. Of course with you. She covered my hand with hers. Thank you, Nikolai, for accompanying this poor, silly mademoiselle. Thanks to you, too. But enough about me. What about you? What do you study? She straightened up and moved her hand. Well, I don't even know. What a dumb thing to say. You just have some general subjects for now. I haven't really chosen my major yet. Maybe something in liberal arts? Can you do that? She asked with surprise. That's what I would have really liked to know myself. Of course, it's Todai after all. It's good to be young, Irene said. I decided it was my opportunity. Come on now. If not for your suit, I'd think you were a student as well. She laughed. Do they make diplomats work here on the weekends too? On the weekends, on the holidays, and believe it or not, on July 14th. Even July 14th? That's going too far. Yeah, not like in the USSR at all. Workers' rights, the International. Let's sing, Nikolai. Irene, I don't think that. Come on, they're singing their Incas. How are we worse? The drunk group in the corner was indeed singing tunelessly, belting out a love song. We're indeed tunelessly belting out a love song. I still think we'll be misunderstood. Do you care about other people's opinions so much? Do you? You're a diplomat. For a second she froze, her eyes cleared up, a certain awareness and even coldness appeared in her gaze. The next moment she burst out laughing again. My God, I'm so drunk. Nikolai, has anybody ever told you that you're handsome? Uh-oh. I'd be lying if I said no. Then, can I? Can I also say that? I didn't know what to think. Half an hour ago, I considered myself an adult, or at least I was sure that I could behave like an adult in any situation. Now it turned out that it took only one drunk French girl at a dilapidated bar to shatter these assumptions. On the other hand, Irene looked very attractive. Even too attractive. While talking, you managed to down a third of the bottle, and by then would have set sights even on Saya-chan. Nikolai, you're looking at me so... The whiskey washed away the last remnants of my timidness. And that's the way anyone would look at a beautiful woman like you if they were in my position, or they were in my place. Nikolai, you're saying this to a woman you just met. But our acquaintance doesn't have to end here, does it? Irene blushed, now seemingly from more than just alcohol, and leaning towards me, whispered in my ear, "Then let's get out of here." My hands were shaking when I dropped a few large bills on the table. "Please, monsieur." "Monsieur." She stood up unsteadily, and stumbled for the exit. I leaped to her immediately and offered a hand, which she grabbed right away and sagged against. Finally, fresh air. When we emerged onto the street, she made a deep breath and pressed herself to me. We should catch a car. I doubt somebody would stop. Watch and learn. She laughed and walked closer to the roadway and waved her hand. I couldn't believe my eyes when a car later stopped right next to her. And what a car! An executive black sedan. Apparently I wasn't the only one struck by her beauty. "Hop in," Irene called to me merrily. Well, it seemed that the fairy godmother had lost her magic wand in a bet, because Cinderella was going to come back from the ball with company, what's more, in a carriage instead of a pumpkin. At first, I didn't even pay attention to the fact that the car's windows were blacked out. She's a spy! Well, Nikolai, you obviously you're obviously not pretending, Irene said calmly. What? Let's go. She nodded to the driver and looked at me with such antipathy that I started fidgeting in the seat. Irene, what's going on? Her drunk joyfulness vanished without a trace. My name is Irina Mostavaya. Major Irina. KGB! Oh my god. And only then did I realize she was speaking Russian, with no hint of an accent. I mean, yeah, why would a Russian girl have an accent? No matter how long you learn a language that is different from your mother language, no matter how long you live in a foreign country, it will always be clear when you weren't born and raised there. Well, that's how it seemed to me, at least. Is this a joke? I still didn't fully realize what was happening. That's what I'd like to ask you. What does this have to do with me? Do you really not recognize me? She frowned. No. Should I? Never mind. From here on, you only answer my questions, and only with relevant and concise answers. Do you know what happened to your parents? We got in a car accident. They died. I remember I was sitting in the back, so I survived. Is that not true? I'm the one asking questions here. And if you want to hear the answers, I expect a dialogue, I said with unexpected determination. Irina bit her lip angrily. Yes, they died in a car accident, but their death wasn't a coincidence. That's all you need to know for now. What do you know about their work? So my parents were murdered because of their work? Yes. Hang on. Is this the right one? She gave a short response. Kobayashi Corporation. It wasn't a question. So what do you know? I don't know nothing. You're interrogating the wrong person. I'm just a student. And what's more, an orphan. You must have already realized that Kobayashi Corporation wouldn't be interested in a mere student. But why me? Irina didn't respond. Tokyo was moving slowly by on the other side of the windows. I had no idea where we were going, and I didn't care. It was unlikely that they were going to kill me. The performance in the bar was probably just a test. To my surprise, I was able to think clearly and analyze the situation with a sober mind. That's what we'd like to find out. So all those calls to my house, were they made by the corporation? No, they were from us. We wanted to warn you. But you didn't feel compelled to heed our warnings. What should I do then? Are you sure you don't know anything? Think again. Maybe your father told you something and you forgot about it. Or maybe he left something to you? Papers? Documents? No. I couldn't really recall anything like that. We were a completely normal family. So, in your view, a family of Soviet engineers who fled the USSR and started working for the biggest transnational company in Japan is normal? Irina smirked. Apart from that, everything was normal. Was it? Or do you simply not remember? Even if... I couldn't believe my parents had been involved in something that could be killed for. Even if what you say is true. I don't know anything about that. I've never known. I find that hard to believe. You can believe whatever you want. I started using the polite version of Russian you without thinking. But still, it was all clearly related to me somehow. To my family. Catherine's note. Having them believe is already... having them believe as much as it was already enough. Nikolai. Irina sighed. Have you completely forgotten about your obligation to our motherland? I don't remember having any in the first place. Her eyes flashed, and she managed to stay calm and continued. So you think you have it better here? In the country that killed your parents? Why should I trust you anyway? Better? I don't know. But until recently I've been living a peaceful life before you dragged me into this. We didn't drag you into anything. On the contrary, we're trying to protect you. What wonderful protection. What does it amount to exactly? Irina sighed. In order to receive something, you need to give something in return first. But I don't have anything. Stop mocking me. She shouted not suddenly. You know everything. Just tell me what the Japanese want and we can bring you home. Or do you think you've managed to fool me? Why would you think they need something from me? You're the ones who called. At the moment, it's none of your business. Then what do you expect from me? Irina calmed down in an instant and studied me with an unblinking stare for some time. Fine. We'll handle it ourselves. Keep your head down. Stay away from all this. That's it? That simple? Would you like it to be complicated? I still have questions, which won't be answered if you want to live. If you're telling the truth, then the less you know, the better. Only sources of information have value. Ordinary students are of no interest to anyone. But be prepared to remain under surveillance for a while. By you? Us, among others. Or do you want an accident to happen to you as well? I felt a strong dislike towards this woman. I couldn't believe that just 5 minutes ago I'd been hoping for some quick sex with a random acquaintance. Although, in a way, I got what I wanted, except I was the one getting fucked. One more thing. Behave normally. Nobody should know we talked. Anything can expose you. Go back to school, hang out with your girlfriends, drink, if nothing else. The car stopped smoothly. We've arrived. Get out. I can make out the silhouette of my house behind the window. Hope Yamitsu didn't see me brought home like this. I had time to think. And keep in mind, we do not repeat ourselves, so do yourself a favor and remember everything I've just told you. I knew that chick was too good to be true. But damn was she fine. In the back of my mind, that whole time at the bar was like, Mokuri. The luxurious black sedan with blacked out windows disappeared around the corner almost silently. I stood at the entrance to my yard, mindlessly watching it go. That's when I started to shake. Almost spasm in fear. How had I managed to remain outwardly calm and think straight? My legs carried me to my house of their own accord. I closed the door, and the garden door, and another one. All the windows. I had so many windows. I wished I had a gun. I lay in bed staring into the darkness with dry eyes. It was obvious that the Chekists wouldn't come back. At least, not today. What about the Japanese? If they kept me under surveillance, they would have seen me hop into that car. The only hope was that those KGB agents knew what they were doing. Catherine, what did you drag me into? We're going to go ahead and stop and save here. If you jack off in a communist orgy, does that make everybody... What? Anyways, we'll stop here and pick this up again tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow won't be held up by a slowed down upload speed and waste a freaking half an hour. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining me tonight for this, I think, third session of Love, Money, Rock and Roll. Yeah, we'll come back to this tomorrow, and then we'll be back with more Metroid Prime remastered on Wednesday and the following Friday. Whichever one I finish first, we'll immediately move on and do the Dead Space remake, because I know all of you who have been laughably using my sound alerts to spook the hell out of me tonight are expecting that one, definitely. Anyways, yeah, here's hoping my setup tomorrow will go through smoothly. Again, everything was looking fine. And like I checked the speeds and everything. Like the Minute of Fear was actually going fine, and then during pre-show everything just started slowing down. So that's a little bit annoying and aggravating for me. But here's hoping it doesn't do that again. Anyways, yeah, we've got the plan, and then here links down below. The first one will take you to the Lazy League's Discord. There you can be able to find the rest of us, such as Ohe Mike, the Batgwin, Gumdolph, many others in our circle of friends, such as Shadow Knight, Rainarchy, Warwick Zero, 98 Tough Love, C Plus Content, and many others in our circle. Come hang out with us, come be lazy with us. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there, a lot of D&D stuff. We got like little fun events going on here and there. We play some Terraria together, among other things. Tabletop sim sometimes. We got like game nights. Saturdays, Mike and I do kind of anime block where we show off some anime. If you want to hang out with us. And actually, this Friday, Saturday, Batgwin's got a nice little Resident Evil themed stream going on. He's gonna be giving away some games, including the Resident Evil 4 remake on PC, sadly. But yeah, so I can't get that. But yeah, catch all of them, hang out with us. The second link will take you to the sister site for this channel, although I do need to update it. But you can be able to find more info on other upcoming streams that I have planned, such as my continuation of the Bioshock series, Mass Effect, the rest of my Metal Gear Solid series. And yeah, you can also find my archive of all my past streams, and if you got any questions, comments, or concerns that you would like me to know about, or any suggestions that you might have for me for future Let's Plays or Retro Nights, head on over to the contact page and shoot them out to me over there. Also scroll down below or off to the side to catch many other streamers that I personally like to watch and follow on Twitch. Check them all out whenever you can. They're all great. And again, thank you for joining me tonight for this return to Love, Money, Rock, and Roll. We'll come back to this tomorrow. Let's see what this whole turn of events is kind of unraveling itself into. Was not expecting this whole like espionage type deal. These visual novels always try to like pull a fast one on you. I mean, it's Everlasting Summer. You were in a freaking time loop, and in one arc, you dealt with your like future self who was trapped in that time loop and went crazy. So yeah, things got interesting. And I think there was a route where you tried to court a cat girl. I never did that one. I never did get all the endings. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Until then, take care. Love and hype. Life is interesting? We'll see. You'll have a good night.